Hi, I'm Jordan from 10 Speed, and welcome to our very first podcast episode. Today, I'll be sitting down with the CEO of our company to ask him about what is it like to work here in 10 Speed and also what we are about. But first, I would like to invite you to follow or subscribe to any of our media platforms so you could be notified of our latest updates and what we do within the trucking industry. So, let's get started with this interview. So, Henrikus, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Henrikas. I'm the co-founder and chief executive officer of 10 Speed. A little bit about myself. So I've been in the technology industry pretty much all my life. As a matter of fact, the first computer machine that I started using was a gift from my brother when I was 6 years old. And to even do anything on it, I had to write commands in basic programming languages.
Okay.
And I would say that was a turning point for me, where that's the moment when I got really interested in computers and technology, and that pretty much put all my life into that direction. So throughout my teenage years, I consumed as much information as I could get my hands on, building a lot of projects, a lot of cool things during my teenage years. And naturally, when it was time to choose what field I was going to study at university, of course, I chose software engineering. After university, I spent my time as a software developer in a career. But my path took a little bit different turn than what usually beginning software engineers do. Usually what happens is they go to large companies and start working on a large code base and getting these good practices. And I started working at startups, building products absolutely from scratch, when nothing exists and I have to invent something new and learn on a job. So as an engineer and developer, I was pretty good at mastering new technologies. So whatever I needed to get the job done, that's what I did. So I worked on a lot of projects. That's what really thrived me, not the technology itself, but actually building something with it that's really useful for users or for someone. And that's what really gravitated me to 10 Speed in the beginning. So we founded 10 Speed in 2018. And I came up to this trucking industry surprisingly accidentally when I worked a little bit as a consultant there, and I was consulting on a few projects. And they told me that no good product exists. And I thought, no, this is 2018. It's really impossible. So I didn't believe it at first. So I did my research, spent a few weeks researching and looking what exists. And all I could find is outdated technologies like software built 30 years ago, and lots of manual processes and spreadsheets, and no good alternative. And that's what really pulled me in, because I saw that that's a good opportunity to transform, and that's what we did. We started 10 Speed, and ever since I worked on this project for over 6 years now. And I actually started as a front-end developer, building the core of our web platform as a front-end engineer. And that's my story, pretty much how it came to be.
Wow, so you're very dedicated within what is developing and creating the need for a certain sector or certain industry, as it seems. So now, as you mentioned, you did your research, you looked up what was needed in the trucking industry, specifically in the US. So now comes the problem. Why is it that the trucking industry, is still using these processes that are still outdated, that are still manual, where there's so much advancements in everyday life that makes life easier? Why is it that they're still using this?
That's a really good question. So for me to answer that question, I have to talk a little bit about the industry itself. So trucking in the United States began in early 1900s, So it's over 100 years old. It's a really old industry. Um, Trucking is responsible of around 70% of freight delivered, cargo transported in the United States. So 70%. And uh, the whole United States pay over $1 trillion every year to move this cargo, and the trucking gets around 80% of that.
Yeah.
Trucking moves around 10 billion loads per year. So it's a really huge industry, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that without trucking and truckers, nothing would get done in the United States. The whole economy basically and the whole capitalism runs on trucking, especially in the United States.
Yes.
And since it was so old and technology moves so rapidly, a lot of the tools that they use right now is built in the 90s, in early 2000s, and so on. And they're still using electronic data interchange format that was built in the 60s, actually, 60s and 70s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's really historical that it happens so much, but it is a super critical industry for the United States. I read this research that during COVID-19 quarantine 4 years ago, they did the study of what would happen if for just 3 days all truck drivers went on strike. Apparently, they modeled that in 3 days you couldn't buy food in any store in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's all about just-in-time delivery. So it's a lifeblood of the United States. And due to these historic reasons, the trucking industry is stuck using these old tools and stuck using this software, basically. All of them try to supplement in one way or another, maybe purchase some third-party software, like combine it, have spreadsheets, do some manual work. They try to solve it as much as possible. But to answer your question, why they are using this outdated software? Due to historical reasons, and just there is no good alternative. Simply there wasn't at that time, before 10-speed came on board, good alternative. Now we've been working for 6 years to build it, and a few others are doing the same. So maybe in the future, now they'll have a real choice.
Okay, well, that's a very interesting take on it, that understanding the history of the trucking industry and how they have been has been working for them so far, so I feel they don't have a need to change per se. Is there throughout your research, has there been any like examples that due to the lack of technology advancements, has there been any stories that could actually help out the carriers to understand why the need of new technology is essential to actually advance their growth?
That's a good question. So no secret that these past few years, actually, the trucking industry was in a longest recession, trucking specific recession in United States history, and they were really suffering during that time. Hopefully it will end soon. There are some signs that it will, but trucking in general is a very low profit margin business. And when something doesn't go their way, they immediately start losing money. One of the reasons why that is because they rely a lot on manual labor. They have to hire a lot of people to do simple jobs. So a lot of people are stuck adding spreadsheets, filling them out, doing data entry, doing what kind of needs to get done to reporting, and that takes a lot of their time. And the companies have to pay a lot for that payroll, for all those people doing these inefficient tasks, and it's a very thin margin. And if something doesn't go right, the trucking gets into recession, they start losing money. Our hope is to build them a tool and build them a piece of software that simply does not make them a little bit more efficient, but is transformative.
Yeah.
Because what they need is, they don't need just faster data entry or 10% efficiency here, 20% efficiency there. They don't need a better mousetrap, as to say. What they really need is something fundamental shift. At 10 speed, if we want to bring transformative change, we have to look at it differently. So how we look at 10 speed in general and our philosophy is it's about missed opportunities. It's about them having an opportunity cost because they are stuck doing these manual jobs and working for the system. They are not doing something of higher value. And if they could be doing something of higher value, they could be more efficient. The biggest cost for trucking, for example, is fuel. So if people would do better decisions, have less empty miles, less deadheads, they would spend less fuel. And of course, the environment will thank it because they are running diesel units, and the trucking industry burns over 40 billion gallons of diesel every year. So if we are able to make it just 1% more efficient, we're already saving the industry itself 400 million gallons of diesel per year. If we manage to improve the performance of 1%. So it's really, we could really have a huge impact for the economy. And another important thing, we just recently came out of a high inflationary environment. So all goods that people buy in the United States, they have to be driven by trucks. And every single thing you buy in the United States, part of that cost that you buy is transportation. So if we manage to make trucking more efficient and improve their bottom line, improve their profitability and profit margins, it means they can lower the rates. So if the rates decrease, they still become profitable. What will happen? The consumers will see lower prices because part of the box of cereal that you buy in the United States, that amount paid for transportation will decrease. So we hope if we manage to achieve what we want to achieve, that could even help reduce inflation and keep inflation lower.
Yeah, makes total sense. So now addressing all the problems, you could say we could call out everything that's wrong within the industry. So now it comes to what 10-speed can provide to help out those problems. So for you, what is the approach that you have developed, that you have worked on, and what you aspire the developers here also working on the software to achieve, to attack, or to, I guess, to fix within the industry?
That's a really good question. So we have big dreams here at 10 Speed. Like I said, we want to use technology to transform an industry, and that's I cannot lie, that's a really, really big challenge and a big dream of mine. So one of the examples that I can provide for you is planners, right? So larger companies, and especially clients that we work with, they have large fleets. And what they have is centralized planners. So someone that is looking at, let's say, a map and seeing loads that need to be picked up, orders and pickup stops, and they look at their fleet where each driver is at this location. And that's really amazing of what they do. They do these calculations in the head, but what they need to do, they need to look at a future point in time where this driver in particular, where he will be in that location, and what is the closest location to him where he can pick up next. And if the distance between the pickup location and the driver location is larger, they burn more fuel for unnecessarily. And these planners, you wouldn't believe they're doing this in their head. And that's not the only human factor that they have to take into account. They have to take into account tens of factors. Okay, this driver doesn't want to go to that state, or this driver likes to go south, or something like that. So keeping this everything in the head and matching these drivers. So it's a really, really complicated job, and large companies have multiple people like that. So we were thinking, how can we help them? Potentially, maybe we can automate that work, but after our analysis, it was so complex that automation is years away. So what we did, we built a feature called map planning, where these planners are able to look at a map, select a location, an order that needs to be picked up tomorrow, and all they do is just click assign driver, and our system automatically calculates all drivers within that location where they will be depending on the order that they're doing right now. And we will calculate fit scores on each driver and tell you, okay, this driver is 92% efficient. He has the highest fit score. Meaning if you select this driver, you can kind of burn the least amount of fuel, have the least amount of deadhead, and usually translates to better profitability as well. So we built this awesome feature where we kind of show that data to him, and now he has to do less work. He can trust our system that we calculated the mileage efficiently and the efficiency better, and instead worry about all the other stuff. So we kind of able to empower them and make better decisions. And these planners are extremely important because just making them more powerful, that can save company like 5%, maybe even 10% on fuel, and that can impact greatly the company's profit margin. So this is just one of examples of how we using the technology can have big impacts.
Well, that is a good point in the sense of providing clarity of the mission of what you're working on and some improvements that you want to do within the trucking industry. But then comes the owners within the carriers. A lot of them, they're using these legacy companies that have been around for years that basically dominate the market. What assurance could you give these carriers of that 10-speed could do the same as them and even better?
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really big problem. And from my personal experience, I can tell you that a lot of these owners, they kind of lost hope. Okay. They've been using these products for so many years, for decades in some cases. And we heard stories, them telling us, okay, I'm married to the system and so on. And, and in reality, they just don't know that there's anything better. They lost hope. And that makes our job challenging as creators of tools like that, where we have to prove it to them that actually it works. And in my experience, there is no better kind of way to convince someone than just to prove it. So what we are focusing right now, and our philosophy is build the best product. And there is also no better way for them to do than to see it for themselves. So during our demo sessions, we just allow them to test our system, to work with it. And some of them are just wowed, basically. And they just couldn't believe that it exists. So we'll prove it to them, providing data, case studies. We offer kind of free demos. They can use it for a couple of weeks and kind of just see what we have. But the product should and will speak for itself. You touched a big pain point for us of how to actually show it to them. Because like I said, a lot of them don't even believe.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So now moving on to the engineers behind the software. The trucking industry is such a niche industry because it's very close-knit. It's not many people or not many companies go and find customers for that in developing software for it. But so from there, in that point of view, the engineers that are working and developing this software, this technology, how do they learn or how do they practice their skills to better the industry in itself?
That's a good question. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I am an engineer myself. I spent building a lot of software and products for business and for consumers all my life. Mm-hmm. And as an engineer, I can tell you that the most important thing as an engineer, you have to really understand what you're doing. If you want to do a great job and build good stuff, good software that is useful and provides lots of value, you have to understand it. So how we do it here in 10 speed, I spent the last over 6 years of my life going really deep. I talked from all the way from business owners to drivers to accountants, payroll people, billing, operations, safety, every single role that is in operations in trucking industry. And I learned in depth of what they do and what problems they face. And we encourage people at our company to do that the same as well. So all our product owners are very well versed in what is the trucking industry. Also, we don't shy away from describing these problems to the developers because it's super important for them to know as well of what exactly are they building, because maybe there's a better way. So what we do, we first analyze in depth the problem that specific role that we are trying to build a feature for is facing. Then kind of once we have a good grasp of the issue, then we sit down with the developers and we try to brainstorm with the product designers, product owners, senior developers, and we are just thinking, okay, what can we do here? Maybe we can do some sort of AI feature here. Maybe we can like take these, for example, receipts and scan them automatically, do some matching, the duplication or whatever. What kind of technology we can bring in and actually make that their life easier. And in my personal kind of experience and belief, that's the most powerful thing. As an engineer and developer myself, I derive the most joy and pleasure not from playing with high-tech toys. And that's, of course, very interesting to do that in your spare time, grab some latest tool and so on. But I get joy from actually taking this technology, applying it and making it very useful for the user. So we try to bring on the engineers as soon as possible into that project, and together as a team, we try to craft a solution. And then once we have a pretty good grasp of how can we solve that issue, we start building the designs, the UI, and then we start building the technology. But what's important, most important is again, how that technology will make their lives easier. And once we launch, we always do user testings and we always want to get as much feedback as possible after the feedback is launched. Okay, how do you like it? Do you see value? What else can we improve and so on? So that's the way that we work here, essentially at 10 speed.
Well, I can attest to that. So this is me working here. It's all good. So continuing on, so I've been working here for now about more than a year, and I've seen how everyone here is working as a team. Everyone has the same mindset, the same goals. How you, as the CEO, how do you push this sense of camaraderie to everyone else?
That's a good question. So it really depends on what stage of the business you are at. And when we were just 3-4 people in the beginning, when we started building this project, it was really easy. Everybody was sitting in the same room. We were talking, having lunch all the time, and it was quite easy to do, and we kind of feel that. But now we are kind of approaching 24 employees this year, 25 employees. What I personally, as a CEO, started feeling at around 15 people, it's just for me impossible to talk to everyone in the company.
Yeah.
Some people are working from home. We have people at Kaunas office, here at the office. So I cannot convey the same message to all of that. So what I personally started working at is at creating a culture of collaboration. I truly believe that if we have a company that kind of promotes leadership and trust in people and teamwork, we can achieve much better things and prevent a lot of mistakes rather than doing an approach where I just tell you what to do and you do it, basically. So I worked really hard on that, and I started building systems of how actually to disseminate information in the company, So we're using this cascading communication method of talking to every single employee. I have a lot of one-on-ones at the company. I try to describe ideas about the culture as much as possible to, and I kind of try to practice radical transparency. So I don't the decisions that get made, I try to communicate as much as possible to employees why we made these decisions and so on. And I have an executive team as well that helps me and making these decisions and bringing problems that I don't know of. Basically, their role is together as a team at the executive team level, basically to make these best decisions. So at this stage of the company, it's still in work in progress, but I'm investing personally a lot of time in developing this. And I think we have a really, really great team of people that do believe actually in what I'm telling you right now about this teamwork. And I saw absolutely transformative effects of that, where previously we had a little bit top-down approach, and I saw less collaboration. And once we started practicing these things, these kind of teamwork ideas, and I kind of personally helped those teams implement them, we improved completely in deliveries, in communication between teams. We make less mistakes. I can feel the quality of the product increasing and what we deliver actually. So that's what we do. I truly believe in teamwork and in having people that truly believe in that. So I think we have a really good team right now at this moment in time, and we are gonna get better and better over time.
And that's a great way to motivate also, and the pushing of how everyone could work together, how to foster that unity within the company, to have the same vision and the mindset. So to motivate also the engineers to work, because every engineer has their own method, has their own thought processes of how to develop also this software. How do you foster this sense of, comfort, or this sense of, trust to this engineer to actually develop and work with this software development amongst the team?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. First of all, what I try to tell people is what is the most important at our work is actually the customer, the user. Mm-hmm. Because the type of product that we are building, we are trying to make their lives easier. So first, that we have to understand is what actually the customer or the user needs. Okay. And our job is to communicate that throughout the company and the development chain. To build just a single feature, maybe 5, 6, 7 people will work on it independently. So we'll have the product manager analyzing the business case of what exactly it needs to be done, and the product owners work on it, then the tech leads, QA gets involved, and then the senior developers. Then after everything is developed, the QA will double test everything. So before the feature gets delivered and the user actually sees and we launch it, 7 people will touch it. Mm-hmm. And what do you think would happen if at certain point in time someone stops understanding of what they're actually building and for? So I try to convey the message, mm-hmm. especially when deeper in the chain for the developers of okay, we're building this feature for the user. Here's why. Here's what they are struggling for. And I've seen many cases where the developer after he analyzed what we want to build, and we even started building, he came up with great ideas of okay, maybe we could do this. Or in a lot of cases, QA actually tries to imagine that they are the user, and she comes up with a lot of problems or ideas that we didn't think about. Okay. And then we go back to the drawing board, modify it, and re-release it basically. So that type of teamwork that I'm talking about every single person in that chain has a say of what we're building.
Yeah.
And I'm totally fine if the developers start challenging something of like saying, why are we doing this way? Of course, in a nice way, then we organize a meeting and sit down together and say, okay, maybe we can do a better way. Or maybe it's a lack of communication. Maybe the developer just doesn't understand the problem. So we spend the time of explaining what we're doing, why we're doing that. And in a lot of cases, it's just a communication problem. So I personally do that as well. So I think communication at our company is key. And if we have good communication, then we can prevent a lot of problems like you're describing.
So now with that knowledge of like how the engineer works, how the engineer works along with the other coworkers, what is something that you might say would be kind of surprising or something different that 10-speed does in comparison to another company?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. So we are a startup, still pretty small, and we are just feeling the effects of size and the kind of communication and miscommunication effects. Larger companies, it's very top down basically.
Yeah.
Someone makes the decision at the top, we need to build this, the UX team makes the designs, and usually when it lands on the lap of the developer to do something, has very little say for it, basically. So, and what I personally felt, a lot of the developers maybe even give up and say, okay, it's not worth fighting for because I know nobody's going to listen to me, and they just implement basically. And they just implement, don't worry about it. And some people enjoy that type of work. It's really chill. I was in that position once myself as a developer. You can just come to work, put on the headphones, work all day, chill basically, and you still kind of work and learn new stuff. It's really good. But we are a startup and we are trying to actually do something that is very transformative. And I'm not gonna lie, it's really, really tough actually in some cases. So one of our challenges in our company, it's really complex. It's like there are so many edge cases, so many things that you need to do or think about that it's sometimes almost impossible for one person to think about. So we're naturally forced to get answers and to build the best product to communicate. So the backend developer has to communicate with the front-end developer. The API is really complex. The front-end developer needs to build like 7 screens, all of them interconnecting, status changes, and so on. So they ask the developer kind of to modify the API. They talk and discuss how to improve performance. They talk with QA very heavily. Our QA is very involved, QA lead into these kind of things. They talk to product designers, question everything, and so on. So for us to build the final feature, what the users see, it's a very complex process. So it will require, like I said, 6 or 7 people get involved to make something happen, and we'll organize multiple meetings, not for the sake of meetings, but to get on the same page, to answer questions, to kind of see the edge cases and to handle that. And that's probably the biggest difference that I see at our company versus at the companies I worked at personally and so on. So this we are forced to communicate, but once we do, great things happen. If we get lazy about it, sorry for saying that word, but if we get lazy about it, if we don't communicate, not the best kind of quality of product will be delivered. And once I saw the difference personally in a leadership position, I was fully convinced that that's the way to go, and that's what we try to kind of work at.
So basically what I'm understanding is you eliminate the meetings that could just be written in an email, basically. Yes. And make it straightforward and everyone understands what they have to do and work for. So from there, what would you like to convey to people that might be interested in working here at 10-speed?
We have a lot of tech companies here, and there is a lot of startups, big companies. So the developers have the choice to work at a company, but when I work with developers, interview them, compensation and salary is part of the equation, but in a lot of cases, it is the smaller part. And a lot of companies differ in their culture and the way of working. We kind of attract people that they want kind of their work to mean something. They want their work to be challenging. They want to learn something new. They want to kind of utilize their skills and bring as much as possible. Because that's the type of, that's the nature of the product that we have. We are forced to do that.
Yeah.
And we attract people like that that want kind of to express themselves. And another thing that at our company is unique, we kind of see that feedback quite quickly. And because we're very close to the final consumer. Companies that build products for consumers, they have sometimes hundreds of thousands or even millions of users. And what they look at the users are usually from the statistics perspective. Okay, what's the adoption rate of the feature, of is it kind of working as intended, what value it's bringing, and so on. And our users are just one phone call away. So we build a great feature, we launch, we have a few meetings with our customers. They are kind of super appreciative with that kind of. I feel of how kind of they are so happy that we have this feature. It's gonna make their life so much easier. So I try to convey that our developers. So you feel that impact very quickly, and because we're literally improving people's daily work, and that's really impactful and important. So, like I said, our company, to summarize, our company is great at if you like challenges, if you like to work on something really meaningful, if you believe in your work allowing kind of to transform an industry and improving that industry significantly, and if you believe in teamwork, then Speed would be a great place to work at. Of course, part of my job to build that culture and make sure that communication and teamwork is in play here at our culture, and I'm trying to ensure that all the time. And as well of the nature of our business and the product we are building. And before I started 10 Speed, I really didn't think much about trucking, or I thought that it's quite boring, to be honest. But once I started doing that, like working at industry, I realized this is the most complex and challenging product I have ever worked with. And I hear the same from people that come to work here. This is like the biggest, most complex product that I have worked with. And because we're working anywhere from driver mobile app to payroll to billing to operations, safety, dashboards, and pretty much anything you can think of that we can use technology for, you can play here at 10 Speed. That's the biggest difference, I would say.
Yeah. So basically, if you want to challenge yourself, work here. So continuing on, so you said that 10 Speed founded 2018, we are now in 2025. What is the future of 10 Speed? What is something that you would like to share, that something that has been working on to release or to showcase to the industry?
Like I said, trucking has been in the longest recession in United States history. And current analyst predictions is that it will come out of recession in this half of the early 2025 and this half of the year. Hopefully that comes true, because a lot of our customers are not having a pleasant time at the moment. But we see that after that recession is over, technology will be key for them. Because the market is fierce, the rates are down, and if you want to maintain a good profit margin, you have to do something. And the best ways to do that is to actually reduce amount of people that are working there, or keep that amount of people the same, and that's what we prefer, actually increasing the number of trucks or units that the company have and keeping the amount of people the same, but they need to be just more efficient to do that. And that's the direction that our product is going and what we're thinking in 2025. So we're building a lot of enterprise features for very large companies for improving that workflow and transforming some of the departments and roles that work in trucking. And like I said, there's 10 different roles that need to happen within a company for those trucks to be moving. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna, in 2025, we'll maybe pick, for example, customer kind of service people, and we'll think, okay, what can we build to completely kind of transform their work, to make them like 3 times, 4 times efficient? What do they need actually to do that? And we'll start working on that. Another one of those, like I said, we rolled out the MVP of map planning. So we're testing that right now, gathering feedback. But we plan to invest into map planning as well to make this tool super powerful and empowering these map planners. We launched our new notification engine. We have plans to build hundreds of notifications that work in a way of to-do lists and tasks. So to summarize, we're moving towards more automation, we're going the path where the system tells the user what they need to do and the problems to look at, rather than them doing that manually and entering that into the system. But like I said, the opportunity here is make their lives easier so they can make better decisions, and better decisions lead to better margins, less fuel burn, and so on. And one other key area that we're building very powerful business intelligence tools. Okay. So the customers can dive deep into their processes, into their statistics, and make really good decisions based on data. We've been investing heavily last year as well into our own business intelligence platform and having all these detailed reports, but we plan to do big investments in that regard as well in 2025. But the key thing here is the only way for the trucking companies to get good profit margins in this competitive environment is to improve their processes. And one of the best ways to do that is invest in software, either buy ours or buy something else, third-party software, but you have to look from the investment perspective.
Yeah.
Invest in people, invest in technology, and look for technology that has great ROI, because a lot of software don't have great return on investment. And if you do that, then you'll succeed, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good point for every carrier to understand and to acknowledge when it comes to trying to maintain a float, because I have been researching, also been studying the market for this past year, and I've seen the struggles that a lot of carrier companies have been facing. So moving aside now the carriers and going a little bit back to maybe the engineers or the tech professionals that have been listening, the recession itself, it's a scary word, and also it's a difficult market to enter. It could also be kind of something to be aware about. So how would you put this in a way that there's nothing to fear, come and join and come and learn, basically?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, trucking had a really good year in 2021 and 2022. They had record years during that time. Now in 2023 and 2024 and maybe half part of this year, the market is recovering, the rates are increasing. But what you have to understand is trucking is a cyclical business. So the economic recession and trucking recession in transportation usually is desynchronized. So trucking on average experiences a short recession around every 7 years. And that is purely due to supply and demand. That's an industry that is really dependent on supply and demand. So there is overcapacity of carriers, the rates go down, basically. The carrier rate goes down, basically the demand for transportation increases, the rates go up. And that's a balance, basically. So we've been out of balance significantly these past 2 years. But after 2 years, I think we reach kind of the equilibrium point where this supply and demand is about to balance each other out. But what I can say that company or carriers, even in recession, they will heavily depend on technology as well. So those companies that will invest in technology right now, by the time the next recession hits, my prediction is they will be doing very well. For those companies that survived this current recession but didn't invest in that technology, they are at a very big risk in 5 years. But for our business as software builders and providers, software is necessary. It doesn't matter what's happening in the economy or what is happening in trucking. Because our type of software, transportation management system, is an operating system for the whole trucking operation. That's literally the key number one biggest expense and software that they need to use. So it doesn't matter what's happening with the economy, with the trucking, they have to use TMS. If they don't, you'll be super inefficient. Now the difference is between good TMS, old school, new school basically, and how good it is. That's the difference. But larger trucking companies cannot survive without a TMS. They just can't. It's too much complexity very quickly. So carriers below 50 trucks, it's possible, but going above 50, 100 trucks and so on. But like I said, we are the operating system of trucking essentially.
Well, that's good to know. So now, before we end off, right now we are in a hiring process. For anyone that's listening that may be interested in applying or learning, what would you recommend to do and how to apply?
Oh, so application process is simple. Just go to our LinkedIn page, go to job section. I constantly add jobs, so we are growing our team and expanding, so you can find any jobs available there. Or simply just message me privately. So I'm doing all the hiring and interviewing them myself. I truly believe that building a great culture, I have to invest in it. So every single employee that joins the company gets interviewed personally by me. So if you are interested in joining, you can DM me personally. Just fire up LinkedIn, send me a message, let's talk and let's discuss, or apply off. We run constantly job ads for various positions all the time, so you can apply that. But like I said, our process is not complicated to join, but if you really love a challenge and really love meaningful work as a developer and applying technology to build real life problems, then I think 10-speed will be a great place to work at for you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Well, thank you,
Thank you, David,
for having the time to speak and also to showcase what is 10-speed. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening. Bye.